Why don't we go ahead and get ourselves started?
All right, I am recording and you are good to go, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to call to order the May 20th, 2021 meeting of the Regional School Board for the Maggie L. Walker Governor School. Let's see. Mrs. Marshall, would you mind calling roll?
Yes. Mr. Page of Charles City is not here. Miss Bailey of Chesterfield not here. Mr. Wright, Goochland.
Hello, hi.
Mr. Axel of Hanover not here. Miss Ogburn, Henrico.
I'm here.
Miss Highslip not here. Miss Hall, Miss Harwood Hall, King and Queen. She said she would be here, so maybe circle back. Miss Barber, New Kent.
Here.
Mr. Pritchett, Petersburg.
Here.
Miss Ayers of Powhatan is not here. Miss Andrews, Prince George not here, and Miss White of Richmond. I saw Miss White log in.
I think she's here.
She's here.
I'm here.
There we go.
Thank you.
Great.
So you have a quorum.
All right, thank you so very much. So that brings us to the approval of the agenda. Board members, we've all seen this agenda for some time now, at least a few days. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to review it. Are there any additions or amendments to what's presented, or do we have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you so much. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank
Sarah
you.
Barber.
I appreciate that very much. So we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye, I'm sorry. So the agenda has passed. Next up, we have the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. I trust board members, you've had an opportunity to review these. Are there any questions or comments about those? And if not, I'll accept a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve as presented. Approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Pritchett. And can we take that as a second, Ms. Barber?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much. So now we're down to recognitions. Dr. Lowry.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have several recognitions today, a couple of them in this part and then a couple of them that we'll do a little later on. The first one I want to acknowledge to recognize is a junior here at Maggie Walker. Her name is Anna Pulaski, and she is Pulaski, and she is on the call right now. And she's been accepted into the Summertime National Security Language Initiative Youth Program, which is a really fascinating program that I would like Anna, since you're on the call, to perhaps share a little bit about what the program is, how you got involved, and kind of what opportunities, when I read up on it, it's kind of neat, what some of the opportunities that participation in this program will potentially lead to. And I've stopped sharing screen so we can see you, and you are good to go.
All right, good morning. So the NSLIY program is a State Department initiative to foster more critical language speakers. So I'll be participating in the program for Russian, and I initially found out about it through Mr. White. And in November, I submitted my application, which had about 3 essays and a list of my personal accomplishments and my records. And in December, I found out that I was a semifinalist. And then after the semifinalists, they did a second cut to determine who would receive an interview. So in February, I found out that I would be receiving an interview. And then in February or March, I had my interview. It was about 40 minutes with a volunteer from American Councils for International Languages and Education. And then in April, I found out that I was selected as a finalist. Year, I would be going abroad to a Russian-speaking country and getting to take language classes in the day and stay with a host family. Of course, that couldn't happen this summer, which is really disappointing, but I'll still be taking language classes every day from June 28th to August 6th. My implementing organization is the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So they're working with a language company abroad in Latvia So I'll be taking Russian classes with a focus in Latvian culture, which I'm really excited for. And over the summer, I'll be building a portfolio about all sorts of Russian interests. I'll be building my language skills so that hopefully by the end of the summer, I'll improve my fluency level. And then they've also said that next summer I'd be open to reapplying and potentially getting to go abroad with the program for real. Yes, very exciting. And so hopefully this experience will allow me to pursue a career in Russian. There are a lot of different opportunities at in-state schools and also out of state with excellent Russian programs. And then potentially career-wise, this will help me develop contacts through the State Department and also at colleges.
Excellent. What do you want to do long range? Like, you say working in Russian. Okay, that could be a lot of different things. Do you have any particular landing spot that you'd like to see yourself in, say like 10 years from now?
I'd be really happy doing anything with Russian, but I've been looking on a lot of different government opportunities and potentially being a foreign service officer, getting to live abroad, work with the language, and helping other people would be excellent.
That's excellent. Well, congratulations. That is quite an honor and sounded like quite a process to get to that point.
Dr. Lowry?
Yes, Mr. White.
Hi. Yeah, I'm sorry for my late arrival. I was wrapping up something with my global studies class. Yeah, and I'm sure Anna described it really thoroughly. And I just want to say that this is a pretty big deal. We don't have someone accepted to this every year. And we've had some really good applicants in the past who sometimes have not been accepted because it's pretty exclusive and rigorous. And so I think it's really impressive that Anna earned acceptance to this program. It's a really important program that's trying to promote the study of critical languages, of which Russian is one, and just to develop more young Americans, reading, writing, speaking, listening skills in some languages that we really need more people to be proficient in. And so, like Anna said, this can lead to all kinds of careers in politics and NGOs and business and so on. So, and I hope she'll be able to take advantage of that next year. If things normalize, that she'll be able to travel, because that's a terrific component of the program. It involves a homestay. But I do think that this, through University of Wisconsin is one of the top Slavic departments in the country, and I think she's going to get some great education from that, and she's going to really represent our school well.
Well, that is excellent. Anna, we are certainly very proud of you. Do any of the board members have any questions or comments for Anna while we have her? All right, moving on to the next recognition, and we've got quite a few folks that are teaming up on this one, but we've always had pretty good success with our We the People team. And this year that peaked out at the apex of success, and our team of participants virtually went to Washington and placed first in the national We the People championships. I think the last time that happened here was right before I got here, so about 5 years ago. And especially this year with everything being virtual and being very, very different than it has been in the past, I think it added a layer of complexity to it. And we've got Mr. Olmschneider, who is the sponsor and coach of We the People, and I see a lot of We the People participants. So Sam, I'm going to turn it over to you. Maybe you could just give a real quick overview of what We the People is for those that might be new to it. And then if you wanted to recognize any of your students who wanted to say a few words, you certainly have that privilege as well. We are extraordinarily proud of this accomplishment. It's great when you have a school with government and international studies in the title, really stepping up and kind of putting our money where our mouth is and doing so well in a competition like this. So Sam, it's all yours.
Sure, and so what I'll do is give you a really quick description of the course and sort of why I think it's cool, and then I'll turn it over to maybe two students who I'll choose, who will be able to give you a little bit of why they found it valuable and why it was different than another course. So We the People is a civics education program that was started for the bicentennial of the Constitution back in the 1980s. And what it does is it gives the students open-ended prompts about very complicated questions of constitutional political thought. What's the true meaning of the First Amendment, right? Questions that don't necessarily have factual answers. And it asks them to develop a 4-minute oral presentation, sort of a congressional testimony style, about that complicated question. They then present that to a panel of judges who are typically adults with significant expertise in the field. For example, one of the judges of the national competition, who has been there for about 20 years, is the Chief Justice of the Oregon State Supreme Court. So they're real adults with expertise in constitutional law and theory. And then the cool part is that the students do between 6 and 10 minutes of oral question and answer about their topic with those judges. So the emphasis is not really on the prepared portion, but on their ability to discuss and defend their original ideas about these complicated questions to the judge panel. So it's a pretty interesting program that encourages creative thinking and engagement. There were a number of studies done on the We the People program back in the early to mid 2000s that show that students who participate in it are many, many, many times more likely to do things like run for office in the future, to be consistent voters, to go into government work, things like that. So it's a really valuable and interesting program. I know that because I did it when I was a student here at Maggie Walker, and I'm very pleased to get the chance to coach the students who do it today and work them through the process. But that said, I'm going to pull a couple of my students at random, so all of you should be ready, and I hope you're awake, to talk a little bit about what you thought of the program, and then we'll leave the board meeting to its work. Let's get Amanda Perez to tell us just a little bit about what they thought of the program.
Yeah, I found it really impactful, and it really has been an amazing experience to get a lot of in-depth research in about different topics, from political science to directly reading the Constitution, a lot of different interpretations of it. I've definitely found it to change a lot of the base of my knowledge that I've had, and really be able to go in depth with a lot of the research that I've been able to do, as well as learn a little bit about different questions that we might have been asked that sort of broaden the field a little bit from what we were doing from the research, and really being able to put the pieces together at the competition from what we've been doing with all the research from the months prior.
Was there any one of the questions that you and your group answered this year, Amanda, that you really remember was kind of, you wouldn't have encountered it in a normal class? I find that's often a good way to illustrate what the course does.
I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. There's a lot that we really went more in depth in things like, say, the responsible party model. We got a question about that that I really don't think we cover as in depth in the AP Gov classes, that we actually had a real political science professor asking us questions about. That was really awesome and a great experience to have that. And he pushed back on some of us, but we were still able to articulate our answer at the end.
And I'll get one other student really quickly. I'll get Justin, who's here in the classroom with me today, actually, to tell us a little bit about his experience and what it meant for him.
Yeah, so I have always been really interested in government and politics. I was actually watching the live stream when the 2017 team won the national championship. And since then, I was so thrilled to join the program here at Maggie Walker. And it was nothing what I expected, but in the best way possible. I did not know what to expect coming in, but talking to other people, I was really excited to join. And I was on Unit 6, which is kind of contemporary issues and how they face us in the future. So some of the questions we investigated were Native American sovereignty, which is something I knew nothing about before joining the program, but I'm very interested in Native American law now. I think it's something I'd like to investigate further in my future. We also looked at the military-industrial complex, which has honestly really made me passionate about the topic, because I got so much in-depth research into how our military operates, how it interacts with the executive branch, and how the legislative branch also comes in and interacts in that system. So it's just such a fulfilling experience to really be able to engage with these, I guess, topics that I wouldn't have been able to engage with otherwise if it weren't for the program. And I wasn't certain of my career path before joining the We the People program, but I know for sure now I want to do something related to law and the Constitution. It's really just ingrained such a sense of, I don't know, just curiosity in me. I want to keep investigating it, and I want to keep pursuing it in my future.
Thanks for letting us come here today and talk about the program, board members. We really appreciate it.
Well, I think it goes without saying that we are immensely proud of the accomplishments. We know how much work this is, and the fact that it's a national competition. There's no real way to understate that or to overstate the accomplishment, I guess. I don't want to understate the accomplishment, that this is a pretty significant deal. And although we historically do very well in it, a lot of people historically do very well in it. So it's really cool. I wish we were all in person and we could do something a little bit more substantive, but it's still great to have all of you on the call today. Board members, do you have any questions or comments that you'd like to share with Mr. Allenschneider or his students?
I will happily say on behalf of the board that we're so very proud of what you do and the time and effort that has gone into this. Obviously, you've reached the pinnacle of what you could accomplish through this process, but it's really rewarding to hear how the process has enhanced your learning and provided you with this incredible opportunity. So congratulations, one and all.
Thanks, folks. So head back to your second period classes.
Yep, go back to class.
Congratulations once again. That's fantastic. Okay, so then that board members brings us to our public comments. Mrs. Marshall distributed the public comments that we had received in writing the other day. I trust that you've had an opportunity to review these comments. There were two of them, the first of which had to do with the admissions process and very specific to an individual who had applied. And we will try our very best to go through and address all of those concerns sort of offline in order to preserve some amount of privacy for the issues. And then the second comment had to do with our climate survey and in support of that and those types of actions as we move forward as a school. So let's see, that would then bring us to our director's report.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. And I would just like to add, I do, with board's permission, be able to reach out to the one parent with the concern. I think that there's some misinformation involving the process that has been passed on to the parent. I want to be 100% transparent with them about how it works. And it looks to me as if somewhere along the line, there's been some miscommunication to the parent. And I want to clear that up so that they understand what's going on. There's some new people involved in the process in that county. And I think that has probably led a little bit to the confusion, but the parent had a very well articulated concern and certainly deserves a response. So once we're done with the meeting, I'm going to reach out and be able to address the concerns that they had so that they're being heard. I want to make sure they're being heard. So just wanted to pass that along to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lowry.
No problem. In terms of the director's report, I've got not a whole lot, but some important stuff to pass along. Teacher Appreciation Week was a couple weeks ago, and the PTSA took really good care of us. So I wanted to certainly commend them publicly for their support. Throughout this whole situation that we've had for the past year and a half, they've always looked for opportunities to support, since their traditional model of doing things has been kind of thrown to the side. And they've just done a fabulous job. And we're so blessed, honestly. I've worked in many schools and worked with many different PTSAs, and certainly on the high school level, ours are just head and shoulders above other places I've been in terms of the engagement. And we just want to thank them for that. We had 10 National Merit Scholarship winners this year, and I've listed them there. It's various different awards. Some of them are cash awards. Some of them are scholarship awards specific to universities. But 10 of our folks are getting a little extra money to take it to the next level, which is always a good thing as a parent who had 2 children graduate from college and just finally paid off the last chunk of a loan about 6 months ago. That would have been nice. Would have been nice if one of my kids had been able to pick up some of this. Math Honor Society had a fantastic guest presentation to celebrate Math and Statistics Awareness Month. And I've written some information there that you can certainly read. It's at a level far beyond my comprehension, but it's always a really good thing. And specifically, Ms. Lynn Reed brings in just fantastic speakers for both her polar seminars as well as her math classes. One of the wonderful things about Maggie Walker is the access that we seem to be able to get from outside experts who are willing to come talk to our kids. The Night of the Dragon for the MLWGS Foundation was held a little while ago, and looks like the tally came in with somewhere just north of $70,000 that was raised. And that money goes to different boost organizations in the PTSA, but the bulk of it goes to helping our students with direct aid when needed. It helps our teachers get their gifted endorsements, as well as to keep current in trends in education and trends that are in their specific content areas. So that money is going to go a long way, and we are very grateful to the Night of the Dragon, specifically to Ginger O'Neill and her team. I got to watch it since it was all virtual. I got to be in the studio, so to speak, and watch it. And it was just a top-notch professional operation. It was a lot of fun. It was a really fun night. And so I'm glad that that's behind her. I know that was a tremendous amount of work on her part, and she and her team did a great job. So this last section here, because of the sort of fluid nature of gatherings and sizes and locations, it's kind of moved several times, but we're kind of committed now to these 2 dates and these times, even though we may be able to do things a little bit differently. The problem is when you plan a graduation, you're spending a fair amount of funds on materials and stages and such. And, you know, we were unaware that the governor was going to lift the restrictions on Memorial Day weekend. Otherwise, we'd still be at the Altria if we had a crystal ball that we could have looked into 6-7 months ago, but we didn't. And so our senior awards assembly and senior recognition night is going to be on the 15th of June at 7 p.m. And that, assuming that the governor follows through with what he's saying he's going to do for ending the state of emergency, we'll be able to take that back inside into the auditorium. Our auditorium seats plenty of people. So even with a no restriction, we can still space out a little bit and mask up and be comfortable with our seniors inside. And then our graduation, and we had to change the date by 1 day because we were just missed the fact that the Juneteenth holiday, which is June 19th, is going to be celebrated in the state of Virginia, or at least recognized, I should say, on June 18th. And we did not want to have our graduation on a state holiday, especially one as important as this one that's just now recently being celebrated. So we wanted to steer clear of that. So we moved it to the 17th. And an added bonus for us was that the VHSL Outdoor State Championship is on the 18th. And it was going to stress out a lot of our kids, particularly our boys, we figured, would have a hard time getting back from Lynchburg from competing and then making it back to school in time for graduation. And by moving it onto the 17th, it's kind of a sweet spot where we're able to go ahead and pull this off. The rain date is the 20th, and it says the same location. Just what I would ask is that regardless of what your faith may or may not be, pray for a beautiful night like last night on June 17th, because if we do have to move it to the 20th, we're not going to be able to have some of the equipment that we have on the 17th, and the graduation will not be as beautiful. So barring lightning, we're gonna go ahead and roll with that graduation on the 17th at 5 o'clock at Hovey Field. Great facility. It's going to work out real well for us. And I think it'll provide a nice sort of punctuation mark on the end of a challenging high school experience for our seniors, that at least on the way out the door, they'll all be together with all of their families with a whole bunch of tickets and be able to celebrate on the way out the door without having to do anything broken up like we did last year. So those are the main announcements that I have. There's also the coming events, and I've just pretty much spoken of all of them. They're tied in there as well. So really right now, between now and the end of the year, it's just a matter of finishing up testing, doing the SOL testing that we need to do, and then taking care of our seniors and honoring them as they get ready to embark on the next phase of their lives. And part of that process involves the senior showcase, which we're doing a little bit differently this year. And I believe Les Cook is on the call, so I'm going to click that part of the agenda. And Les, if you want to maybe walk folks through how we're going to do senior showcase this year. And again, what I would just remind everybody is we have to make these plans quite a ways in advance. And we made these plans with the assumption that we were still going to have reduced capacities and had to work within those confines. So presenting their material is a pretty big deal. And so when we started to do it the way Les is going to talk about it, it was under the understanding that we would be under different circumstances, but it's all going to work out real well. So Les, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks for having me this morning. I'm glad to be presenting to you guys about this. This is a yearly event for us where our seniors get the opportunity to explain to us what they've been doing in either their senior seminar course or in their mentorship. And as you can imagine, this year has been really different and challenging for both of those programs. The seminars, I think they rolled really well because they had all their students getting used to working on their classes through Zoom, and they function through that and are working on their final projects. And their showcases will vary from either being a recorded group presentation, or some are doing some individual presentations within their group. So it depends on what the seminar is covering and how they're choosing to cover it. Mentorship, as you can imagine, was extremely challenging this year. We had to first find people that were willing to host their students as mentors, and many were. I commend all the people in the community that stepped forward, over the summer during the midst of COVID and said, we'll find a way to do this, and they did. And our students got to have, the best experience they could work out. As Dr. Lowry was saying, we did have to opt for a virtual asynchronous showcase this year, because when we made the decision, things looked much worse than they did and the restrictions were much tighter. And I'll also tell you, I think this is actually aiding our students a little bit as well, because as they're writing up their papers now for their final research, a lot of them are finding that they are a little behind where they would have been last year due to COVID kind of pushing everything back, stretching out the AP testing window, and making it a little bit more difficult for them to complete some of their research that, had they been in person more, it would have gone much more smoothly. But they're all getting their papers in now. They're starting to work towards getting those presentations done. And what I will be getting out to all the board members and to the school community is, once we get towards the end, there will be a link that will be shared that will have all of the different presentations on them. So any presentations that you want to see, you can click on the link for that student and watch any of the ones that, either the titles that interest you, or I will also have it listed so you can see which students came from your school district, so you can especially target those if that's something that you want to do. We did something, we didn't have students present, we just had them do like a virtual poster that they put forth to everybody. And one of the things that, even though I've really missed the in-person presentation, one of the nice things about doing this asynchronous format is that students can watch as many presentations as they want to. So they're not limited to just seeing, 8 throughout the day. They could actually watch 20 or 30 or more if they wanted to. And they can actually watch it at their convenience. So they could even click on some of these during the summer, or, because I'm going to leave it live, they could also click on it next year while they're thinking about their seminar decisions or their mentorship decisions. So it's really a neat thing for them to be able to look at all the different things that have been done at their convenience. So that's kind of how we're doing it this year. I should have the link ready on the 10th. I'm hoping that everything will be on it by then. I do know that some of my students may be running a little bit behind. So even if I release it on the 10th, I may still be updating it as people get their work into me throughout that time. So that's kind of how that will go. So I look forward to putting that out for you, and I hope you guys get to check out some of the work that our students have done.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate all your efforts this year, because just the whole, you kind of understated, finding the mentors was difficult. So many of the businesses and a lot of our kids do medical internships and mentorships, and they've simply shut down. They're not taking anybody from outside. They've sent everybody home. They're all working from home. It's my hope that as we're opening back up now, that some of these companies will be more open to taking our kids again, because it's certainly a good deal for the companies as well as our students. But I know you've done some tough work this year, Les. I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you. And I will say that the new mask lifting has already made people start responding more positively when I reach out to them. Like, they're saying yes more easily now. So every time we get something lifted like that, it's great news for mentorship. So, but thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. I think this is a really unique opportunity, board members, to participate in something that always, at least historically, had been sort of schedule dependent. So you have this opportunity to see all the great work that the kids have put in over the last year. And as he said, it sort of seems to be able to be accessed sort of like a database. So you can check on your own students if you choose to, or you can check out everybody that are friends of your kids, or whatever the case may be. It's a real opportunity. So thank you, Mr. Cook.
Thank you.
Great. So I believe that brings us to unfinished business, board members.
It does.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I can slide right into this second piece here, because the strategic plan implementation update is really this month is going to be focused on this climate survey. And I've got 2 students as well as a school counselor on board with us today who were very, very involved in this. That's an understatement. And what I want to do is sort of share this survey with you. I'm going to see if I can, I guess I can kind of move it. If you adjust your panel on the right-hand side and just click the little flat one, there's like 4 little pieces there. It'll sort of shrink you down to where you can see the whole screen. I don't want to shrink the presentation down too far. You won't be able to read it. But one of the key pieces of our strategic plan, the very number one goal we had, was to create a welcoming environment for all of our students here at Maggie Walker. And in order to do that, we needed to collect some data. We needed to find out, and if you remember back, the School Advisory Council about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, did a survey, and the survey talked about, was a very general welcoming type survey. And the results of the survey were indicated that 95% of our kids at that particular moment in time felt welcomed on some level to being at Maggie Walker, and that 5% did not. And to be very candid, when I presented that data to different groups, some people said, well, hey, 95% is really good. You ought to be happy with that. And in most cases, when you get a 95% success rate on something, you would be happy with that. And I think any company that would say 95% of our clients, like us, that's a good thing. But when you peeled back the data a little bit a couple of years ago, what we found was that 5% that wasn't feeling comfortable, wasn't feeling welcomed, tended to be very specific demographic groups: Black students, Latinx students, to a certain extent, some of our Asian students, and some of our LGBTQ+ students as well. And that was alarming to me, because although the 95% sounds great, when you have a rather high return of dissatisfaction by a very important groups that we have here on campus, then we needed to kind of peel back that data and get a little bit deeper into it. So as part of our strategic plan, one of the initiatives was to solicit student feedback and information. And so the School Advisory Council is the great mechanism to do that, because it's made up of students, parents, teachers. Sometimes you have some alumni on there. And we have an administrator, Mr. Smith, who serves as a liaison for me to this council. And so we tasked them with the idea of doing a survey. And then they sort of came up with the idea organically on their own as well. And all of this sort of came together after the events of last summer, that this was a real pressing thing that needed to be done. And so this was largely driven by students, 2 of which are on the call. And once I kind of roll through the findings here, I'm going to turn it over to them to talk a little bit about this. And what we wanted to find was, okay, so what is going on at Maggie Walker? How do our minority students, particularly Black, Latinx, Asian, how are they experiencing welcoming and belonging here at the school, or are they not? And if they are not, what is it that's happening that we need to address? And it's kind of a bold survey, I have to be honest. It's one of those kind of things where the results that are going to come back they're going to tell you some things that you might not want to hear. And I really want to commend everybody for having the bravery to be able to go through this process, to be willing to ask the tough questions, to be willing to listen to the honest, candid, tough answers, and then be willing to say, okay, now that we have this information, what are we going to do with it? So the whole survey is attached in the board notes, and you can look at that at your convenience, but I've kind of summarized a real quick 10-slide executive summary, and I'm going to go through it pretty quickly because I want the students and one of their teacher counselors to be able to talk a little bit about the process and what they learned. And the purpose of the survey, again, was to kind of figure out what was going on, particularly the feedback on the racial climate, social activities, and classroom interpersonal relationship here at school. And the 4 major findings were that students want increased racial inclusivity and accountability, and that they want more diverse school events. And we found that there are areas of need for staff development, but the students also reported that generally, and this is kind of a bit of a generalization, that their friend groups were supportive, racially sensitive, and aware. So we've got good bones to be able to work with in terms of starting, but those were the 4 big findings from the survey. And real quick background as to why we did it, and I already spoke to that, but the bottom one there, the initiative particularly to facilitate student input and feedback. So in the year of COVID, it made it a little bit more difficult than what we normally would have done, but the students developed a survey. It was optional. It was designed to give students in grades 10 through 12, because our freshmen really at this point in time had never actually been on campus. So we didn't want to include them in the data for this particular run. but we specifically wanted them to share their feelings regarding the racial climate and barriers to student engagement here, and to provide some recommendations to help us get better when we were able to get back together. And what we found was that while students, for the most part, really appreciate the educational opportunity, and across the board, that came through on the survey, that the quality of education that they were getting was great, and that they liked that. But and most of the students reported that they were feeling racially inclusive, or at least felt neutral about it. But again, when you start to peel back the data and take a look at the group that was saying, yeah, that doesn't really work for me, it doesn't really apply for me, we found that the students that were identifying as Black African American kind of said that it's racially inclusive to a point, but none of them said they strongly agree. And overall, there was a lot of variance to the answer to that question. So they were not as enthusiastic on how well they felt that they were being included as other folks. And that was alarming and concerning to us. They responded positively to questions about some of our activities like Fall Festival, but also acknowledged the need that we don't have a lot of events that celebrate diversity. This current school year, is the first year that we've done a real Black History Month celebration and presentation during the school year. We've had other assemblies that have kind of come and gone, but we haven't really addressed that issue of being able to celebrate the diversity that our school has, and we want something that's going to improve that. There were also several reported incidents where students felt uncomfortable for racially insensitive comments or classroom examples that they shared. And this involves staff training, not only in how we address and talk about certain topics, but also how we react to what we see going on in our classrooms as well. And being able to not just be a bystander if we see something that's racially insensitive. There's a way of addressing that and correcting that so that we can grow and move forward. And that came through pretty loud and clear with many of the students' comments that they had experienced something that made them feel uncomfortable in class. And then again, sort of bringing the last piece of the summary, based on the voices that we got, there were some recommendations that were developed, and they had a lot of really good, very helpful and operational recommendations. There are things we can do. Certainly maintaining the Black History Month Assembly and doing things to recognize and celebrate the different contributions that people have had, weave that into our curriculum more so than as a standalone event. And I think that's one of the challenges. It's very easy for us to say, okay, well, we'll just knock out an assembly every month based on whatever federally recognized month that is, but that's not really changing what we really want to do, which is to go ahead and weave this inclusivity and sense of belonging into everything that we do, starting from when we onboard the freshmen all the way through when we hand kids diplomas as they walk across the stage. So this group came up with some great recommendations, some of which are things that we can implement rather quickly, some of which are going to take a little bit of time. But just to kind of go through them quickly, one of them is for us to commit to getting some form of a position of a diversity and inclusion and equity position into the budget for next school year. Now, it may not be a full-time position, but someone somehow that's going to be responsible for owning this type of work and making sure that it gets done. And I think that needs to be a specific responsibility for somebody, either in the form of a part-time position or some sort of a person that's going to be their job, is to make sure that these things are getting done. We also want to provide transparency in a way for students to be able to report incidents to us, so they're not just carrying them with them. If we have a teacher that's saying something that's or teaching in a way that's racially insensitive, we want to be able to address that. And to be very clear, when we say racially sensitive, it's not an issue of saying words that everybody knows are words that don't belong in a school or belong in society at all. Sometimes it's a lot more subtle ways of just the way questions are answered, the way students are called upon, the way language is used in a class that's not culturally aware or that might be reinforcing stereotypes and such. And these are just things that are trainable, fixable if we know about it, and we can put training in place to try to minimize these things. Developing an anonymous way for students to be able to report it to administration, that's important, and that's something that we're going to work on. Highlighting Maggie Walker's history and the school's history. We've got all the materials in place, we just need to be able to put them together. And then a couple of them were a little more technical, but in many respects easier. Making Fall Festival more accessible to students that don't have transportation by starting it earlier. That's easy to do. Looking at the club policies and cultural programming, to be able to make it a little bit more inclusive, make it a little bit easier to form a club if it doesn't have if it's a small group of students that want to have a club, being able to modify our policies a little bit to be able to get them off the ground and find them a sponsor. We've talked about expanding cultural programming, peer mentors, being able to assign mentors to students as they arrive here at school, particularly kids. If you're the only kid coming from one middle school that you don't know anybody here, being able to assign them a mentor so that they have an immediate contact and being able to fit in. And then some of the more longer range ones, curriculum modifications to improve cultural diversity. Some of that's going to have to come from the state level, the AP level, College Board level. But we have courses on the books that we can offer. Black writers, there's a Black writers course. We have, I had an African American history course that have already been approved. We can bring some of these things back as electives and be able to give students the option to be able to take those and pursue those interests. And then again, the big piece of staff development, that's going to come with the state as well, because the state standards have changed to where we have to provide staff development and cultural competency. And that is one of the standards now that teachers will be evaluated upon. So we need to be able to work on that. But that's actually a good thing that the state's done that, because that provides us the support to be able to get it done on the school level. And then just sort of working on increasing cultural understanding and programming. In conclusion, and then I'm going to be quiet because I've talked a lot longer than I wanted to, and I want to let these students and Dr. Loving address this a little bit. But the bottom line is this: we know that there's work to be done in the area of diversity and inclusion. We know it, and it's challenging work, it's tough work, it's difficult work, it's uncomfortable work sometimes, but it needs to be done, because at the end of the day, we want every single one of our kids, regardless of what they look like, what they believe, where they're from, what their gender identification may be, what their sexual orientation. We want everybody to feel welcomed, to feel they belong here, to feel valued. And what we'll do is continue to run these surveys to be able to track this data and be able to see if we're making progress, because we have to be able to hear from the students. And there are some folks that probably would argue, well, I don't do any of that. I'm a great person. I've never done this. But the data is showing us that our students, this is not some vague national trend. This isn't some weird research study where we don't know anybody and it just says, these are our kids. These are kids that are in Maggie Walker right now, some of which are not feeling that they belong, that they're comfortable, and that they are welcomed here. And that has to change, because no teacher, no administrator, no school board employee would ever want one of their students to feel that way. And the reality is that some of them do right now. And the students and the school advisory council have presented us this data and said, here's what we found. Now, what are you going to do? And that's the piece that we're at right now. And I cannot say enough for how appreciative I am. And when you look at the actual document itself, you can see the enormous amount of work that went into it over the past, I guess, probably 6 months or so to put this together. I'm going to pop this off and go back. I'm actually going to stop sharing for just a second here so we can get everybody on. Specifically, we've got 2 students and we've got 1 faculty advisor on board here that have met every Tuesday night, I guess it was Tuesday night since November, and some Fridays in person, working on this data, working on this report, and putting these things together. We've got Emmy Lee, we've got Gabriella Watson, we've got Dr. Rachel Loving, who is a school counselor who's also a SAC member. And what I would like to do is put myself on mute for a little while and ask the students first, and then maybe Dr. Loving, to share your takeaways from this survey. And these are 2 seniors. I mean, these are people that aren't going to directly see the benefit of this work. They will be gone doing wonderful things at the next level, making us very proud. But they want to know that the school that they went through is going to be made better for those that follow them. And I want to allow Gabriella and Emmy to say a few words and talk about the survey and talk about what it means and what their hopes are that this would accomplish. So folks, I'm going to go ahead and be quiet and turn it over to you.
Hello, my name is Emmy Lee and I'm a current senior at Maggie Walker, like Dr. Lowry just said. I just want to share my experiences of how I got involved and my personal experiences at Maggie Walker. So for me, I got involved actually through Gabrielle recommending me to Dr. Loving. And when she presented this opportunity to me, I thought it was a great opportunity for me to voice my concerns that I've always had about Maggie Walker's racial climate. And I've had countless conversations with Gabriella in the past offline about racial environment at Maggie Walker, as well as just race and society. And all of this just felt like the perfect timing. And like Dr. Lowry said, we've met every single Tuesday night since November, as well as in-persons on Fridays to create this survey, to organize Black History Month, as well as to analyze the results. And while it's all been a lot of work, I wouldn't trade this experience for anything else, because I think I've grown a lot, and I think I've been able to share my experiences to hopefully leave Maggie Walker a better place. And I think from the results of the survey, I think it fundamentally shows that there is a issue in the school's culture that seems to tolerate these microaggressions that may occur. And what needs to change is the school's culture, whether that's from admissions practices or that's from holding teachers and students more accountable for their actions and what they say. That can be teachers going through more trainings on cultural awareness, as well as students getting that training from outside groups potentially. Students participating in cultural assemblies, multicultural festivals, and in general, the student body having a discussion within ourselves so that we're engaged and aware of the situation. As for my personal experience, I've had an instance in the past where I had a teacher tell me that I could not be an hyphenated American. I could not be both Chinese and American. I could not be, I either had to be Chinese or American, but not Chinese American. I've had classmates stare at me when communism was mentioned in class. And additionally, I had a student, a white classmate, come up to me who did not speak Chinese, but he learned some few phrases and walked up to me and called me yellow in Chinese. I was very outraged by that statement, and yellow, for context, calling that to an Asian American can be a racist slur. I'm not sure what his intentions were, but the damage was definitely done. And in all these instances, I've just felt the burden to explain myself and my identity to others. And I don't think I should have to. Their statements made me feel less American. And I don't think I ever should have to represent an entire group. I think that I will help educate people, but it is also on the responsibility for themselves to educate themselves and make themselves more culturally aware. And I know these incidents aren't just isolated, because I had an older sister who graduated here in 2015, who also shared similar experiences to me. So if things from then to now are still relatively the same, there's definitely things that could be improved upon. And please don't get me wrong, I've really enjoyed my time at Maggie Walker. There's no question I've gotten a great education. I've had wonderful teachers. I've built wonderful relationships. But throughout it, I've also just realized that we've never had a course or a serious discussion on the racial diversity at this school since I've been here, and which leads to people of color to often feel sometimes excluded, as well as the need to constantly explain themselves and their existence to other people. And I firmly believe that Maggie Walker can change this and should improve upon this through some of the recommendations that were just mentioned and the executive summary. That could be including hiring a diversity, equity, and inclusion person in the future, having an anonymous reporting system, committing to outside speakers coming in, as well as just having more staff trainings. And I just hope that in the future, it's not just me calling Gabriella to discuss racial inclusivity or diversity, but that these discussions can happen both outside of school, but more importantly, they happen in school through our friend groups, classes, whatever the case may be, so that everyone can gain a broader sense of cultural awareness. So thank you guys for listening to me today, and I'm going to pass the baton to Gabriella.
Thank you, Emmy, for being so candid. Hello, my name is Gabriella Watson, and I'm also a senior at Maggie Walker, and this work is incredibly important and personal to me. I remember it was my first week of school, freshman year, baby freshman, didn't really know anything, and I was just grilled about what were your grades in middle school, and what was your admission test score? And no matter how I responded, the individual told me the only reason I got into Maggie Walker is because of affirmative action. And that really stuck with me. And I didn't realize that that wasn't the process until about junior year, where I brought this up to a teacher and they explained to me, yeah, that's not how it works at all. And there's just little instances like that. I remember going to Appomattox Governor's School because they were having a fashion show. My friend was in, and just seeing and being surrounded by African Americans, the fashion show and the step show. Then I come back to my school, and I'm the only African American in class, and we're discussing Huck Finn, and we don't have a formal Black History Month celebration or recognition. And so just kind of feeling that weight and not having that specific place for African Americans. So the way the survey started, I was on SAC, joined the Removing Structural Barriers Committee. And I was really excited to kind of dive in, fix things about race. But in that first meeting, there was a little bit of tiptoeing, and I kind of looked around and I realized I was the only person of color in the room. And I was like, race is the biggest structural barrier to student engagement. It's been criticized, lack of diversity at our school. Students are angry and frustrated, and they need somewhere to put their concerns, like officially. And so we formed a focus group, formed pointed questions. When we were committed, those Tuesday evenings, I know the meetings went on for an hour to 2 hours, and Amy and I would call afterwards, kind of discussing next steps. And so the thing we really took away from it is you have to have a two-pronged approach. You need the celebration events. You need students when they come here to feel welcomed and accepted and celebrated, but you also need to be tackling the school culture, and that comes from the teacher trainings, and that comes from the student trainings and discussions, because a lot of these students haven't had to have conversations of race, and they just will stay in their little bubble and continue to make those kind of insensitively charged comments if we don't show them and teach them better. And so I also want to reiterate, Maggie is a special place. I have met the most amazing individuals, and my little friend group is so diverse, and I've learned so much from them. And it's really about expanding that and making that a mainstream norm. And I've just appreciated my invaluable cultural exchanges with Emmy. And even though we're seniors and we will not see it next year, this will continue to be important to me, because my little sister's going there next year. So these recommendations are a first step. The next step is implementation for the necessary change that has to happen. So thank you for listening.
And my name is Rachel Loving. I'm one of the counselors at Maggie Walker, and I've been at the school for 13 years. And I just wanted to basically say, I think our students and Dr. Lowry have covered it, but I wanted to publicly thank the students for everything that they've done, for all the time that we've spent together the last 6 months putting this project together. It's truly one of the most important things in my career that I've ever been a part of. And I've learned so much as a person and as a counselor. And I think I am better professionally for being a part of this project. So thank you all for your time and efforts. And I look forward to being able to share this with a broader audience in the near future.
Thank you, all three of you. And like I said earlier, I can't emphasize enough how important this work is. Gabriella, I did not realize that we have your sister coming next year, so that is an extra layer of accountability to me, because I know she's going to go ahead and call you up and let you know how things are going, and I want those phone calls to be good phone calls. So thanks for sharing that little bit. Mr. Chair, I'm going to turn it back over to you and the members of the board if you have questions or comments. This is some pretty heavy, intensive work that we've got in front of us, but I just wanted to commit publicly to not only the students and Dr. Loving, but to members of the board, that we are going to do this, and we're going to do it with fidelity and honesty, and it's going to be challenging at times, but we're going to come out of this in a much, much, much better place than we went into it, and that's something that you absolutely have my commitment on that. So, Mr. Chair, I'm going to turn it back to you for any comments.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lowry. First, I so very much appreciate the time and the effort that everyone has put into it. It's very clear from listening to both Gabriella and Emmy that they're passionate about this, and that they have the best interests of future students in mind, and they're seeing it through their perspective and their lens. And I think this has been really great work. What I love about this is that there's going to be some data tracking. We've now sort of set the commitments to continually coming back, and if not having the exact same type of survey, it may be tweaked over time. It will be something that we can track and look at and understand the effectiveness of the things that we're trying to do each year. And I appreciate the commitment of the entire staff to working on this throughout the summer, and sort of putting through several tactical things that will help to change the environment and make it a much more inclusive one for everybody. And I want to also say thank you to Ms. DeGroat for letting me know that my comment only went to her. I wanted to say that both of you were very, very well spoken, and we are certainly proud to have you represent us in any format, but in this one is very special. So thank you. Board members, are there any other questions or comments?
I just want to second Mr. Wright's comments. I think this is a very very strong actionable product that we have to work with and make changes in a positive fashion for our community and beyond.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Well, we certainly look forward to the work. Thank you, Dr. Lowry, for seeing this through. And I think this has been a very
Excuse me, I'd like to make a comment.
Oh, please do, Mr. Pritchett.
Yes, yes. I just want to say that I'm very proud of both of them for making the comments that they made. And this has been just a long time coming. I've been on the board now for a long time, and to actually see that we are moving forward to make changes, I mean, it's just exciting. But I just want to thank them for every statement that they made. Like you said, well spoken, and thanks for their support also. And we look forward to making the changes that need to be made at Maggie Walker. Thank you all.
Good morning. Can you hear me? My camera has gone out, so I'm not sure if y'all can see me. This is Mariah White with the RPS, Richmond Public Schools. And a question that I would like to know, I heard that they have an active focus group. I would like to be a part of that and come to some of the meetings with that focus group, if they don't mind adding my email. I am very passionate about this issue, also representing Richmond Public Schools. And also just ensuring that everyone is treated equal in our Richmond Public Schools. So if I can be a part of it and do anything to help, I would like my name included. Thank you.
Great, thank you for stepping forward. That's fantastic. Okay, first I find I need my glasses. So let's see, that finishes up our unfinished business, and it brings us to our consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, we've got 4 items on the consent agenda. Personnel item that I'll talk about in a second. We also have our monthly financial information that's there, as well as just our CARES Act transactions. I signed off on the last of that, I think, yesterday. So we did not leave any money on the table, as well as our donations report. There is one very important key item in the personnel this time around, and that is that we are ready to make our recommendation for our new assistant director. We had an interview panel that Mr. Pritchett was on it, as well as a couple other folks that are on the on this call as well. And it was our unanimous consent that we would like to recommend Dr. Lisa Williams to be an assistant director here at Maggie Walker. Dr. Williams has been our English department chair for quite some time and taught at the school for quite some time. She earned her doctorate degree last year with an emphasis in diversity, equity, and inclusion, particularly in recruitment and hiring, which is something that we're certainly very interested in. And we think that she will be a strong member of our team. So she is included in the personnel section, but I just wanted to highlight that as well. The other items in the personnel section just involve the somewhat traditional hiring of this time of year. Currently, we are almost fully staffed. We are conducting interviews today for a school security officer. And I believe we are still working a little bit on a part-time art teacher, although we've made the recommendation, we've made the offer, we're just waiting to hear back. But all of the other positions are filled. So with a little bit of luck, by the end of this month, we should be completely staffed up and ready to roll. So all of these items can be taken as a block in the consent item section.
Fantastic, thank you, and congratulations to Dr. Williams, and so glad to have her join the team in a new role. Certainly been a long time member of the team, and that's great. And of course, want to take a moment and recognize Dr. Ellis and all of the work that she has done too.
Chair, I was going to do that at the end, but if you want to do it right now,
well,
this is as good a time as any.
Let's do it twice. That's fine.
All right,
I'm
you
just
do your
going to
part,
say
and I'll
it
do my
now.
part.
Well, great. So, board members, are there any questions or comments about anything on the consent agenda? And if not, I'll accept a motion to approve as a slate.
I'd like to make the motion that we approve the slate as presented, the personnel slate.
Yep. Thank you.
Are we doing all of them or just personnel?
I was good. You know, it's your choice, to be perfectly honest, as the motion maker, but we could do the entire consent agenda.
Okay. I make a motion that we approve the entire consent agenda as presented.
I second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hall. Thank you, Mr. Pritchett. We've got board members a motion and a second in front of us. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Great, thank you very much. So that brings us down to our action items.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, we've got two action items for this morning. One of them is a second read on the approval of the Governor's School Foundation board members. I can't see if Ms. O'Neill is on the call right now. I think she was earlier, but I do have them here. It was a first read last time. These are very strong candidates to help the foundation continue doing what they're doing. And they've been listed there. You did them on a first read last month. So this is just kind of the second read and the official approval of these members to serve on their board.
Okay, so board members, impressive list. I'm certain you've had an opportunity to review this. Are there any questions or comments about the slate of officers that have been put forth, or do we have a motion?
This is Sarah Barber. I move we approve the nominations as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Barber. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Is that Mrs. Hall?
Ms. White.
Oh, Ms. White, so very sorry. Can't see everybody on the screen. Okay, so board members, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the foundation officers for 21-22 school year, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any in opposition? Great, thank you. Very excited, and I'm sure Mrs. O'Neill will be as well.
She will. Mr. Chair, members of the board, the second item for an action item is something that I'm particularly pleased to be able to offer today, and that is that as we go back in time about a year ago, we approved a budget where we had approved a raise for teachers, but were then held the money sort of in abeyance because we weren't sure if we were going to, what our funding situation was going to be as we went through COVID. But as we've kind of run through our fiscal year and gotten close to the end now, we have found that we have enough excess funds in our personnel accounts to be able to award all of our staff members a $1,000 per employee compensation adjustment. That's, and again, based on their FTE status. So a full 1.0 would get the full 1,000, a 0.5 would get 500. But we wanted to twofold for this. Number one, we had the money to be able to do it, which was obviously critical. And two, our staff, every one of them, from the administration that I work with, every one of the team members, regardless of their role, has put in an enormous amount of work over the past year that are way above and beyond what a normal school year would have. We're having to learn things differently, deliver things differently. Even the simplest things like distributing textbooks and retrieving textbooks became very, very complicated when we were trying to do that within the confines of building load numbers and gathering numbers. And everybody has really had to step up and do stuff completely differently than they've ever had to do it in the past, and do it under a compressed time frame with a constantly moving set of rules. And it just felt right for us to be able to recognize everybody in the form of a little something extra that they could get in their paychecks right before summer break. The total cost is roughly $87,426. It's not going to impact VRS contributions in any capacity, and it could be distributed to them either in one lump sum or split out over 2 paychecks in June, depending upon the easiest way for us to do it. But we wanted to recognize the work that the teachers had done and also do right on the part that we did have the extra money allocated in our personnel accounts to be able to pass this along to the teachers. So we are asking the board's approval to be able to give a one-time cash adjustment of $1,000 per employee adjusted for FTE status, and be able to do that by the end of the current fiscal year.
Okay, board members, well, first, thank you for bringing this forward. Certainly the staff, top to bottom, side to side, are very deserving of anything that we can come up with, and I'm excited that this is an opportunity we can provide. Board members, any questions or comments? If not, this is an action item. Do we have a motion?
This is Sarah Barber. I move we approve the salary adjustment.
All right, thank you, Ms. Barber. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, we're all rushing to second that, but I saw I could see Mr. Hall.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you both. Board members, we've got a motion and a second in front of us. All in favor of the one-time compensation adjustment, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any in opposition? Great, thank you, sorry, old habits.
He's
Dr.
taller.
Lowry.
He's taller. He's better looking too.
Yeah, no, I don't know if we're not trying to do anything except improve a failing mind here. So
right there with
members,
you,
that brings us to items for board review and discussion. We've got a couple of things here. Dr.
2 items here for board review and discussion that can be voted on and approved if that's the desire of the board in June. The first is textbook adoption, and that is our annual event as we go through updating our texts and making sure that they're meeting the requirements on both the state level as well as AP and VCU's dual enrollment classes. So there's some textbooks there that we would like you to take a look at it, and they've gone through quite a process, and Dr. Ellis can certainly speak to it if you need to hear it, but just trust me, she crosses the T's, dots the I's, and does everything within board policy to make sure these books are ready to go. And then the other one is a technical thing, which allows us to reassign any overage funds from this year into our reserve funds for next year. And those numbers will be more available in August after we close out our fiscal year accounts. But this is an annual piece that goes with policy. It's just the assignment of the reserve funds. So both of those items are just for review. Myself or Dr. Ellis can certainly answer any questions about them. If not, over the next 30 days or so, just we would ask you to take a look at them and certainly let us know if you have any questions.
And Dr. Lowry, just you indicated so, but I want to make sure it's intended that the blanks have not been filled in yet because the books are not yet closed.
That is correct. Yeah, this is just the first read, kind of those will have numbers in them when you actually
That's great. Thank you.
I thought you might like to see those.
Yeah.
We'll certainly have those straight.
No doubt. So then that brings us, board members, any questions or comments for on the items for board review? If not, then I'll move forward to, I'm sorry. Okay. So then that brings us to information items.
There are several information items there. I'm not going to go through each one of them individually, but you can certainly click on them and see kind of where we are with stuff. Again, just COVID hasn't slowed us down much in terms of the achievements that we've had outside of school. One of them that's not on here that we just got the word from this morning is that 2 of our students, Charlie Eunice and Carrie Ann Slayton, were both are both being recognized as Richmond Times Dispatch Scholar Athlete of the Year finalists. That's the top 10 out of the entire central region. And if you remember last year, Mary Caroline Haynen was the Richmond Times-Dispatch Scholar Athlete of the Year, and she was a Maggie Walker senior who's now at Columbia University. And so we are very excited that we have two more that'll be going up for that same award and certainly being recognized as finalists. And that's always a really, it's quite an accomplishment to be at the top of your game sports-wise, and then also be such a strong academic person as well. So we're excited about that. And then if you roll through the rest of them, you can see many other awards that we've received as well. Spring sports are getting ready to go into their regionals competitions, and I think that we've got some pretty good possibilities on at least 2 or 3 of our teams to be able to take it to the state level, and we'll see how far that goes as well. So making the transition from 2A to 3A was not as traumatic, I think, as some people thought it would be. The competition is certainly tougher, but we're rising to it, and that's good news. And then the last piece I would have, and if I could just indulge the board for a second, and then I think Mr. Wright may as well. Dr. Ellis may or may not be with us at the board meeting in June. She's got some things going on, and hoping she'll be able to make it onto the call. But if not, I didn't want to let a board meeting pass out without recognizing the work that she's done for the school over the time that she's been here. There's really no easy way to sum up the amount of impact that she's had on the school, on our programs, on our partnerships with VCU, keeping the academic standards at our school at the level that they've been. That has been sitting squarely on her desk since the day I walked onto campus, and certainly going back many years before I got here as well. She is one of the smartest people I've ever met, insightful, has a depth of knowledge that just comes from years and years of experience. And although, you know, we're excited to bring new administrators on board, and we're happy to view the retirement that all of us are looking forward to someday, there is going to be a noticeable learning curve for us to be able to pick up the work that she's done and to try to be able to continue the work that she's done without any kind of a drop off. And she and I we're going to have a series of meetings. We've got the first one scheduled to be able to start downloading her brain into, you know, as much as mine can handle at a time, as well as jump drives and files and Google Docs and everything else that goes with it, so that we can continue to be able to move forward and continue to maintain the standing that the school has maintained. So just kind of on a professional note and a personal note, she's going to be missed tremendously. Her fingerprints are all over so many of the programs and things that we do here. And on the same token, it's delightful for me, honestly, when you see somebody who's put in a career dedicated to kids and to education, and finally get the opportunity to kind of say, okay, I'm now going to pass the torch, and I'm going to enjoy some time. And I'm so looking forward to that myself, you know, especially after this year. You know, it just made it that much more real. So there's a certain element of jealousy, and I know that she loves to travel, and she and I have similar tastes in a lot of the traveling that she's going to do and the wine that she's going to drink. And so it's just what a great honor that she's earned that spot to be able to go out of here with her head held high, knowing that she made a significant difference and made an impact. I think that's something that everybody tries to strive for, and whatever their profession is to think that they left the place better than they found it. And I think in her case, that's absolutely happened. So Mr. Wright, Ms. Barber, I know Mr. Pritchard, you've been, and I guess Ms. Hall, all of you have been around a lot longer than I have, and certainly know the work that she's done. So I will defer to you if there's anything you'd like to share with her in the event that we don't get to have her in an official capacity on our next call.
Well, it's certainly very difficult to improve upon what you just said, but Dr. Ellis, it embodies everything that it means to be Maggie Walker Governor School, and I think she's responsible in so many ways for the academic and cultural successes that we've had. So I can't thank her enough for her time and dedication. And you have my utmost respect, and probably a little bit of that jealousy that Dr. Lowry mentioned too. So board members, anyone else?
I would agree. Dr. Ellis, you've been a tremendous asset to the Maggie Walker community and made such a difference in thousands of students' lives. We will definitely miss you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank Dr. Ellis also, and believe me, you will enjoy retirement and travel.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's fun.
41 days.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I'm retired, but I'm still involved in this. But boy, I just got back from a trip too. So you enjoy.
Thank you.
I would also like to thank Dr. Ellis. It has been wonderful working with you. Wish you a great retirement. You're already looking younger, so I can tell you're getting ready.
You're right about that.
But it has really been a joy working with you. I really enjoyed working with you on the strategic plan also. Appreciated your expertise, and you will be missed. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Good. I wanted to thank Dr. Ellis for working with our planning committee on behalf of our planning committee. Thank you so much for bringing so many courses to life to engage our students. I know that work between the VDOE and VCU and getting it approved by so many committees. I know the work that's involved, so you will be missed. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Certainly will be missed. We hope that we'll run into you somewhere in an airport. How about that? Okay, great. So Dr. Lowry, any other announcements? I think that was...
No, sir, that is the extent of the agenda. Unless the board has any announcements, I think you get to say the words that you love the most when it comes to meetings.
Very true. Board members, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Thank you. In a second, I'm certain is somewhere out there, just not. Great.
Second.
All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Dr. Ellis. We'll see you soon, hopefully.
Aye.